Good morning, everybody. It is 8:30 and it's my pleasure to declare this meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee, in fact the first one of this new triennium, open. And just to remind members that this meeting is live streamed, so please use your microphones when you speak. Can we say the karakia to start the meeting together, please? It's on the screen. Waka te hu. Kia ora. Thank you very much. Before we get into apologies, I would like to deal with welcomes. So it's a welcome to everybody, as I say, to this first Audit and Risk Committee meeting of the new triennium. A welcome back to the members that were on the previous Audit and Risk Committee. Certainly as I sit here as your chair, it's great to have that experience and that consistency. But we do welcome one new member, Councillor Lawler. Wonderful to have you here, and welcome to your first meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee. So we look forward to your input. And as I said, not really facetiously to you at the beginning, this is where the fun is had at this. So welcome, and we look forward. Welcome back to Felicity, and welcome back to Sam Nicole, representing the external auditors, EY, on behalf of the Auditor General. Always good to have you here, Sam. And a welcome to all the management team who attend this meeting and support. We have no apologies. We haven't received any apologies for this meeting, so we'll note that. And there's been no requests to speak at this meeting have been received. It would be remiss of me if I didn't pause and consider conflicts of interest. It's a hot topic of mine. It's an area in local government that many people get into trouble. So two things. Firstly, make sure that the interest register is kept up to date. And if you feel that there are any conflicts of any items on the agenda today, the opportunity to raise them now. Silence is assent, so there are no conflicts, and as I say, please keep the register up to date. There are no items of extraordinary business being received, so we will crack on into the main agenda being starting with 6.1, Health and Safety Quarterly Report. Always a really important report, always one that sort of garners a lot of discussion here at the Audit and Risk Committee. So we've been asked to receive this report, so I will move the motion. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Turanen. So it is now open for discussion and debate. So Sandra, is it? Yes, it is. Welcome, Sandra. Thank you very much for the paper, and we always sort of operate as taking the paper as read, but really welcome your comments, things that you feel that we should be aware of, and any updates, since this paper was written. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. So leading into the Christmas period, there was certainly an increase of incidents, in particular pain and discomfort, up by 42, and threatening behaviour up by 13 from the previous quarter. This could be put down to more people using council facilities due to it being summer, the holidays. I looked into last year, it was a similar increase at the same period of time. The pain and discomfort issues were mostly customers, cuts, grazes, nosebleeds. However, among the pain and discomfort reports, 14 were breathing issues from the PCA Swim Club, In that period, the pool had a total of 58,474 visitors with no other breathing complaints, which provides some assurance that it's likely an isolated issue related to specific group activities rather than a widespread problem affecting all the pool users. We have been looking into what council's been doing to mitigate any environmental issues that could be affecting the swim club. Aside from things that most of you will already know, like the air handling unit being cleaned, tested, the ozone reader that was installed, air movement smoke test conducted, the water tests being conducted multiple times daily, the external testing provider K2 who provided air quality testing at peak load times, of which all readings met industry standards. We also engaged with K2 again to complete another series of tests during the swim club sessions. We're still waiting for those results, and I'll be able to bring those to the next audit and risk meeting. We've also asked the swim club to undergo a review of their training and recovery program to eliminate all possible variables. The review they conducted wasn't as thorough as we expected, so we've asked for a more in-depth review, looking at things like the training sets that they're doing on the days that they're getting the issues that are coming up. Also, with the threatening behaviour issues, Council continues to review and develop processes to support and protect our staff. This includes working on the threatening behaviour guidelines, regular conflict de-escalation training, our animal control area having an external reviewer look at how they operate to see if there are any other ways that we could be keeping them safe or safer. Some of the lone worker personal duress alarms have lately been tested. Council's reviewing how best to ensure a consistent approach to future testing and user awareness. Also, the facing customer desks, they're having their security protocols reviewed as well. Monitoring and compliance teams are also looking into how to safely share information with other teams who visit houses which have a history of dangerous encounters. Yeah, so those are the updates.
Thank you, Sandra, for that. Open for discussion now. Councillor Duncan, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the report. That's great. Look, I was really intrigued on page 8, the truck stuck on the level crossing. Yes. With the barrier bar coming down between the cab and the compactor. So there was no way you could get out of there without wrecking the... Okay, and he estimated that he was safe enough away from... That's a pretty big gamble, isn't it?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So, and I believe there was somebody else there. They both made the call very quickly together.
Yeah.
That the train could get through. Yeah.
So the only other alternative was to back out and break the arm, yeah?
I believe so.
Okay, that's dodgy. That's great, though. Well done. The second one was page 17, the Hereford Street incident involving a machete. Were the police involved in that?
I'm just wondering if Jerry or Mike can respond to how that panned out.
We did refer that one to the police councillor.
Yep. And has there been any...
No, there hasn't, but it's one of the houses that Sandra mentioned before where we need to share information.
Okay.
So people don't go near that area.
Man, do these people get danger money for going out there? Look, and just the other one, when they were doing the timing for emergencies, a number of venues reminded to ring 111. So do they physically have to ring through to the 111 call? Does that not swamp
so the wardens, the part of the procedure is for a warden to call 111. Yep. They should be prepared that that call is coming. They will actually know that this is a test. It's a drill. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. The next one I had on the list, Councillor Lawler, and then the Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I just had a kind of similar range of questions around staff training to deal with challenging and potentially dangerous behaviour. We had a relatively small number of people go through the training, but then the comment that it's in everybody's induction. Do we offer refreshers? I mean, it does feel really important for people to feel confident in their engagement.
So we have the in-person training. We have it in induction, then we have in-person training. I think it's about a half a day. And currently we're developing online modules for refreshers, so we can just keep reminding people. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Lawler. Mayor.
Thank you. I know the abuse cases are up and we've had more this side of Christmas. I know from what I'm getting online and everything else. Are we having to bring the police in more often to deal with these things for staff?
I actually don't have an answer for that. I can look into that and come back to you with some responses. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Turin.
Thank you very much. I had a few questions and you actually answered most of them in your introduction at the beginning, so thank you very much. Just wanted to follow up on a couple. In relation to the PCA Swim Club pool breathing issues, this is an issue we've been dealing with for a while, obviously, and answers elude us. Have we, as part of our investigation to this, interviewed the pool lifeguards, the regular lifeguards that are usually working at these sessions to see if they've identified particular trends around this? Is it the same 3 kids every time? How spread out is it?
I think Ruben's looking very ready to answer that question behind you there.
Kia ora. With each of the People Safe reports, they're all raised by the lifeguards, so it's the lifeguard's job to go and interview all of the swimmers, take their bloods, take their oxygen levels. We're quite heavily trained in delivering first aid and that kind of thing, so the reporting that we're doing is quite detailed. And because this has been going an ongoing issue for a long time, we take quite a lot of details from each of those complaints.
Thank you. And just confirming as well, this still remains only at Te Rauparaha Arena. We haven't had any complaints at Cannons Creek Pool about this?
No other complaints.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I wanted to flag, just around the increase of threatening behaviour. So obviously big increase in threatening behaviour, and my recollection from the last term was that we've been seeing an increase over a period of time as well. So this is a big jump up from what was already a big jump up. It's starting to get quite concerning. Is there anything else that we can be doing, thinking outside the box, even if it requires a little bit more resourcing from council? I'm really worried that it's going to get to the point where something really bad happens. Is there anything else that we could be doing?
Yeah, I think the fact that we continuously review what our processes are is the important part, because every time we do a review, we might find opportunities to do something else. We are always looking at it. ELT always noted in our meetings on Tuesdays, and suggestions are always coming through as to what else we could be doing. So it is a regular item. I think Mike looked like he might have wanted to comment on that too.
Nick?
Actually, we were just discussing, and I see Wendy's ready to speak to it as well. I will just speak to parking in terms of threatening behaviour. So we are looking at a new tool, introducing a car to be able to reduce confrontations at a vehicle. So that will be coming to you. So we're always looking at new tools for compliance and enforcement, and that's one of them which will come through. But I can see Wendy was ready, so okay.
Mike, did you have anything to add, or?
No, thanks. I was just going to steal Nick's thunder, that was all.
And Wendy, does the same apply to you?
No. I was simply going to make the point that there is technology solutions for some of these things. We introduce them cautiously because actually, personally, I'm a believer that personal contact often alleviates some of the stress, but certainly our parking wardens are one area where they get a lot of abuse, and technology. There are technology solutions that are becoming cheaper and just more cost effective and reduce that risk.
Councillor Leggett.
Yes, I was a bit along the same lines. I think it's mostly been answered. I just wondered, I always look at annualised data, and obviously this threatening behaviour thing is growing, and I was going to ask what proportion of that increased threatening behaviour has been due to the introduction of paid parking and the issues that we're having around that now. Do we know that?
It's probably a bit hard to say exactly. Certainly, there is some aggression, and we probably all get emails from people who are very angry about paid parking. But we've always ticketed people for staying too long or not having a registered vehicle. People don't like tickets of any sort. So it's not that different in the scheme of things. And Nick can probably say, but I would have thought it had certainly lessened. People are largely used to having to pay for parking now.
Yeah.
Sorry,
you go.
thank you. And I would add that we will. It's a good question, and we will actually look to see if we can look at our data to see whether we can see a change from it. Wendy's right. People are used to seeing us on the streets. It's not uncommon. I guess there are hotspots where you can see the stress is increasing and perhaps around that cost of living pressure points. So we definitely see it in the CBD in high stress areas. But I will look to the data and see if I can provide that response for you, Councillor Leggett.
Thank you. The only other comment I made has been made by people. I mean, it's a worry that threatening behaviour is increasing, obviously. So de-escalation training is an important thing to note, and we should keep a watchful eye on it because it is important for everyone.
All right, thank you. Good discussion. Certainly my summary of it is, I think, not only with the threatening behaviour, but in some of the sort of near misses and, some of the trends are upward. And I think really what that signals to me is the need to look at your sort of processes ahead of time. If you do get a major incident, what will be the course of action, whether it's a threatening behaviour thing that boils over, or whether it's a major sort of health and safety. Just what are the processes? What are the policies that you'll follow in dealing with that? So just have those looked at and at the ready. Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Warren. One quick question. Can you just add the councillors and the mayor to the training? We would like to do the training. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor, I don't think you're supposed to have a taser.
Unless we didn't know that you're a policeman.
Just one further comment that, you brought up the near miss incidents, and one of the, aside from the level crossing incident, there was also a near crush incident in there, which was concerning as well. And I just wondered whether we'd pushed back on that and gone into that in more detail to prevent something like that happening again, because that could have been really serious.
The near crash incident, Mike, you...
Can I just say that with all of these, we take them really seriously. The level crossing one first. Do you remember about 6 months ago, Goodman's had a truck that was smashed at a level crossing up in Waka? So we've been watching this really closely to see if is there something happening here with respect to level crossing. They've always been dangerous. So we did put out a bit of an APB to all of our staff and contractors saying, hey, stuff's happening on level crossings. We don't like seeing it, and making sure we're taking extra care at level crossings. Same with the crush one. Every time something like that happens, it's an near miss, look really closely and make sure that we minimise the chances of that happening again.
Councillor Lawler.
If I may, I think the increase in near miss reporting is actually a good thing, because we need people to be reporting their near misses so that whatever the danger is can be remediated. So I think that's encouraging. And I also think the reporting from the various contractors on their health and safety is very encouraging.
Thank you for that observation. It hasn't always been that way. We had a period where we felt that we weren't getting much through from the contractors in terms of reporting. So That's a good observation because it has improved over the last 12 months. Felicity.
Most of my questions were around the trends in threatening behaviour, and they've been discussed, but the aspect that I feel I don't have much understanding about is the flow-on effect in terms of mental well-being of staff who either have been through an incident or those around them that are feeling stressed about the potential. So I just wondered what was being done in that space to look after people's broader well-being in an environment where this is a real issue.
Yeah, we do offer quite a lot of opportunities around that mental health first aid topic. There's a lot of wellbeing initiatives that we have here. After an incident as well, there's a process in line where, the manager needs to talk to them. Health and safety get notified as well, so they have an opportunity to go and talk to them and ask what kind of support they might need. There's a few things that we do, a few processes that we have in place to address that and make sure they've got that sort of support and that they're prepared. Yeah.
All right, thank you. As always, really good discussion, good level of questions on health and safety. Thank you, Sandra, really good report. Difficult work, but we appreciate what's being done here and look forward to future work. So.
Thank you.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we receive this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Agenda item 6.2, the audit management letter. Again, we've been asked to receive this report, so I'm happy to move in that regard. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. So it's now open for debate. Welcome to the table, Ian and Peter. So you're going to step through briefly this for us. Thank you.
Yeah, just a very quick introduction. So obviously this relates to the 24-25 financial year and was undertaken by our friends at Ernst & Young. As a whole, I guess the general comment here is that it went really well. We have not identified any high issues, which is fantastic. And of the moderate issues, we managed to decrease that from 4 in the previous year down to 3. So tracking well, I think I'm taking it as a win. But Sam, over to you on the actual contents of the management letter.
Cool. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Sam.
And as Ian summarised quite well, this relates to the June 25 audit. Councillors will remember we were completed on time without any issues and issued an unqualified audit report, so wouldn't lose sight of that context. Pleasingly, the new findings are lower risk items, the areas we've identified in our work for improvement, and after our discussions with management, we've chosen to formalise them in a way that they can be monitored and closed out in due course. And there's 3 items that have been carried forward from previous periods, and they relate to areas of our audit focus, rates, water complaints, and capital expenditure. So they are areas where we spend a greater level of effort in our audit work, and we've identified some areas for further improvement, more than just those low items. And in respect of rates, later in the meeting, there's a report back from the internal audit, and there's a commonality of findings around the QV versus your rating database records that you use. But really happy to take questions from councillors on the nature of our recommendations.
Thank you, Sam. I, for one, am pleased with the way management respond to this because, I think to use Sam's words, this is an improvement opportunity. We have some external people come in once a year and undertake an audit, and this is, if you like, a byproduct of that audit. And the real value is the way that management respond to it and pick up those recommendations and put them in place. And I certainly sense that management take this very positively as an improvement opportunity. So that's great. And, I think we should also acknowledge, even though it's back to June 25, This is basically the first meeting since the finalisation of this audit. So that's why we're dealing with it here. So open for further discussion. Councillor Leggett.
Oh, just a question around your report on control findings. At the end of the third paragraph, you've got, as a result of our procedures, should not necessarily disclose all weaknesses. You should not assume there are no additional matters. Is that a problem, or should we be worried about that? Or is that just because you needed something to say? To keep us on our toes.
It's just for clarity. The scope of our work isn't to trawl through council and look at everything. So items that come to our attention in our work program that we discuss our plans and results with you are what features in the report.
Councillor Trillin.
Thanks very much. I was just looking over the item around there's an incorrect charge, 3 Waters rate, and I was reading through that particular one, and it reminded me of the reporting we saw recently, specifically in Wellington City Council, where there were a combination of over and under charges on rates, and they talked about how there was some process and system issues they were going to have to go and look at. The reason I raise that is I wonder when that has happened there, do we know if we use similar processes and systems? Has that triggered us to look at the way that we are doing our rates charging at all, or do we use a different system? We don't need to worry about that.
I can answer that. So we would use similar processes, but they were quite specific, the issues that they had. I think one of them was around GST, and it was more to do with how those rates were entered into the system. And we have a lot of checks around our rates, and when they get entered, they get triple checked. So I'm quite confident in our processes.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Lawler.
It's just a question about the reconciliation between the QV data set, because we've said for 2 years in a row that we'll run a 6-monthly reconciliation. I'm just wondering what that's about really, and why that didn't happen last year. Is there something I'm not understanding about that issue?
So that's definitely on our radar, and one thing that's happening this year is we have the bulk general rates revaluation. So we haven't done a check this year because all of those rates will be effectively bulk uploaded.
Felicity.
I've got a question about the finding on page 29 around procurement and contracts under 100K. And initially it didn't sort of concern me until I'd worked through the whole board pack, and there were some themes coming through around from the internal audit work on page 60 and the NZTA audit report on page 48, where procurement procedures and practices were getting a needs improvement or sort of a bit of a nudge. So I just wondered, looking through what was being done generally about, it seems like the big contracts are okay, but maybe there's some weaknesses in the smaller contract space. So,
through the chair, I'll answer that question.
Thank you, Jim.
This is pretty topical at the moment, if you read the paper. Look, we've, over the last 2 years, spent a lot of time particularly focusing on the larger contracts over the 100K, and we have a procurement committee which looks at all and approves all expenditure for those particular appointments and subsequent works. And there is a few things that we have obviously picked up through NZTA audits and so forth that we've got to be a lot more careful and making sure that we abide by the rules within the NZTA, but the audit this year was much improved, and we can come to that later. Under the 100K area, that's where we're doing a lot of, putting a lot of energy into training, awareness of what the processes are, and a bit more work into looking at the underlying contracts and the contract management functions that follow. So we're doing supply expenditure analysis, We're very conscious of changes to the government rules as well around contract management, and we'll be looking at that through that lens as well. I guess the key thing here is that it's a work in progress, but we're definitely bringing in the good disciplines that we've had with the larger contracts into the smaller stuff.
That's great to hear. Yeah, thank you.
If I can just for one final comment pass to the Chief Executive.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge, Sam, this is your last meeting, I do believe, with us. I can't remember how long you've been with us, but it seems for quite a long time. And EY has been our auditors on behalf of the Auditor General for certainly preceding my time here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that relationship and thank you and your team for the support. We don't always like audits, to be honest, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So, but thank you for working well with our team.
Cool. Thank you, Wendy. Yes, EY's done Porirua City Council's audit for 21 years on behalf of the Auditor General, and I think I've done the last 4. As a Wellingtonian, it's actually been a real pleasure to spend time out and sort of see how Porirua has changed over my lifetime, but the work that council does in behind it. It's really rewarding for the team to sort of just be able to come up the line, not a great distance from where we base ourselves, and work in our community with clients. So it's been a pleasure, and we're sad to be parting ways, but we do the appointment on behalf of the Auditor General, and sometimes these roles change.
Sam, can I add on behalf of the Audit and Risk Committee our thanks to the work that you've done over your term, and pass back to your colleagues that are still there that sort of worked with the council over those 21 years. And just to point out to councillors that the changes coming about because the Auditor General wants consistency in audit providers across the partners that are going into Te Akawai water entity. And so that's what's been driving the change, nothing else. And going forward, the Council will have Audit New Zealand as the Auditor General's audit service provider. And in due course, we will be introduced to the senior people in that relationship. But Sam, thank you very much for the very constructive way that you've gone about the work in some difficult times. I think to go out on an on-time completion and a non-qualified audit opinion is something to be very proud of. So thanks for your efforts.
Yes, I was just going to say the same thing then. Thank you, Sam. And I think we're up to 17 years, whatever. It's not our choice to have the other people. I'm putting that on the line. Much rather stick where we are, if they're listening. Not my choice, but thank you for everything you've done.
All right, so thanks and all the best, Sam. So it's been moved and seconded that we receive the audit management letter for the financial year ending June 2025. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Agenda item 6.3, the New Zealand Transport Agency Investment Audit Report. Again, we've been asked to receive this report, and I have pleasure in moving that we receive this report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Mayor. Open for discussion. Thank you, gentlemen. Julian and Mike? No. Mike.
I've got Renier Ackerman, our Maintenance and Delivery Manager, supporting us today.
Right. Welcome to you both to the Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you for the covering paper, and take the report as read, but do highlight anything in there that you want us to be fully aware of. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Like Jim mentioned before, our rating has improved, which is an awesome thing. Last year we restructured the team, which has helped re-deliver and reprioritise some of the work we've done. They did ping us on some procurement process, contract management and financial processes. But again, we have filled those spots with some recruitment. Sam Costello from the finance team is working with us really well. So yeah, we have some dedicated resource looking into that stuff. The only thing we have in terms of all the other recommendations, we've completed those, except the TO operational requirement document, which is in draft form, and we're about to look at that. Thank you.
Can I start the discussion off by asking, we see these reports quite regularly, sort of in splendid isolation somewhat, and over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we have seen an improvement. But due to the nature of an audit, there are always findings, and there's one in there that talks about an urgent need around the SSA processes. And it led me to believe, have we got any benchmarking comments or observations or knowledge? What's happening with other councils in this area? Are they getting similar sorts of reports? Or, I think that would be helpful in us understanding, how we line up perhaps with somebody else that we might like to be compared with.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, there are benchmarks. For the next report, we'll be happy to kind of pull those together and give you a bit of a wider picture about what's going on. We were towards the bottom of the pack. We're now in the middle of the pack. So I'm very happy to be able to bring that to you.
Thank you, Mike. That's really helpful to know that we've sort of improved, and I think those benchmarkings would be helpful. So, any other discussions? Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm just interested in, on page 44 there, R4.1 and 4.2, they were underway to be finished in January and December of last year. Are they completed? Oh, page 44. So R4.1 was take a more proactive... Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, 4.1, take a more proactive role in leading and documenting contract-related meetings. Yep.
Yes, we have. Yep, totally. So yes, there was, I forgot to mention before, some housekeeping sort of maintenance that we needed to do. Yep. Yes, we've taken total sort of ownership around those meetings with NZTA and right across the board of our stakeholders.
Great. And 4.2 there, ensure that all safe system audits are completed?
Yes.
Yep. Great, thanks.
That's great to hear, because that was what I was referring to as was highlighted as an urgent need. So good to hear that that's closed out. Mayor.
I just want to acknowledge the change in the teams and the work. It's dramatically improved, and working across RTC and working with NZTA, much better and working really well. So thank you for the changes.
Here. Councillor Lawler.
More of a process question, really. I note they commented on the fact that there was a contract where we didn't take the lowest bid, and their requirement that we do take the lowest bid. I'm just wondering whether there might be other factors that we would consider when we're procuring contracts.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, completely. And there's two instances in there, Councillor, and both of those instances are, on my judgment, I think we made the right decision. It's how we documented how we arrived at that decision, and the very issue that you're raising needs to be better documented. So that is what the TET reports in there, the Tender Evaluation Team reports, needs to be better documented. So we've taken that on board, and we'll make sure we do that as we're going through the tender process rather than after we've finished the tender process. Because you're right, price is not the only... With the NZTA rules, sometimes it needs to be the only factor, but we're very careful about making sure that we don't have a race to the bottom when it comes to price.
There doesn't appear to be any further discussion. Good process and excellent to see sort of that we are making sort of improvements. So again, support what the Mayor said. Congratulations to the team. Been moved and seconded that we receive this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Agenda item 6.4, the risk and assurance update. We welcome Phyllis to the table once again. We've been asked to receive this report, so I'm happy to move that we receive the risk and insurance update report, seconded by Councillor Lawler. Thank you. Phyllis, normal procedure. Thank you for your report. We've read it, but do highlight points in there that you need us to be fully aware of.
Well, thank you, Warren. Good morning, councillors. And so the risk and assurance report, this is an update against the work plan. And the main thing to highlight is the results of the internal audit review on the rates processing. So we've talked a little bit about it, but I feel like I should expand a little bit more in terms of the findings. So we did find that the overall controls are very manual, and you've heard from Peter, we do have a lot of checks, but these are manual, and manual processes do tend to have inherent weaknesses around them. So that's one of the key findings in terms of what we found with the process itself. There were some improvements to be made around how the peer reviews are applied, so make sure they're applied more consistently, and around how we have oversight over some of the, again, the reviews that happens throughout the rates processing itself. There were certainly areas where we feel that automation could improve a lot of things and to reduce the possibility of errors. That's highlighted within the detail of the report itself. Our review also looked at customer communication in terms of how we do it then. And again, there were some areas where we could improve how we engage with customers and giving them a heads up around that. And of course, there's also the finding around reconciliation with the QA records. Again, this is a manual process at this stage, I understand. So there are possibilities of error. So that's the control environment. But having said all that, detailed testing showed that it's a robust process. We have confidence in it. So I think that's the difference around the control environment versus what we're really seeing when we do the substantive testing. So from what I understand with the team, we are working on improving some of the things that we've raised within the audit report. And yeah, I'm comfortable in terms of the action that management is doing in this space. It is still ongoing, as highlighted in my report. The other bit to highlight as well is perhaps what's going to the audits that's coming up, which is the sensitive expenditure review that's coming up. So just last week, actually, the OAG issued a new guidance on sensitive expenditure, and just for information to note that our policies are in line with that. So I don't expect too many issues. Our principles are still the same, but the OAG guidance did highlight that there are some changes, one of which is around how we receive gifts and offers, and an emphasis that we should refuse by default. So that's one of the new things that came out, like a more stronger emphasis around by default, we should refuse gifts and offers. There's a stronger emphasis as well on the role, on the tone at the top in terms of governance and how we manage sensitive expenditure. So governors and senior members modeling the right behaviors. Again, the guide was a lot more strong in terms of having really good tone at the top. But overall, I think the guidance that came up last week, we should be in line with that. And the sensitive audit now is in progress, so we'll see how that goes. And this will be reported to the committee in the next audit. In the next meeting. If I can just jump to briefly to just around page 60, which is just a summary of just the overall assurance that's happening here. So I think that, I've provided some details around the actions taken around the internal audit recommendations, but I also highlight some of the commonalities that we are seeing. And as Warren pointed out, we do have procurement, and that includes how we procure sensitive, how we expend sensitive expenditure as well. There's a common theme around that. And as Jim mentioned, these are for the under 100K, and we are seeing that across a few audits. Other common findings is, again, rates that's been mentioned, as well as how we deal with customers. So we are paying attention to these themes, and I'll be focusing on making sure that we have good, robust processes around addressing this. So, thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Phyllis. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Phyllis. My question relates to Datascape, page 55, and it talks about unresolved system issues. This seems to be going on for a really long time. Is there light at the end of the tunnel, or is this always going to be the case?
It's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I might respond to that.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. It's interesting, actually. Our vendor has approached us to work through, I guess, as a bit of a, I don't want to call us guinea pigs because we were in the first place, but they were certainly keen to work with us to look at all aspects of the systems which need to be addressed, and the prioritisation of that is something that the BTG team, our ICT group, are having to be much more proactive in, and working alongside the business users as to, is this a critical issue or whatever. But I think it's encouraging that the vendor has reached out to us and said, we would like to work with you, Porirua City Council, to actually address all these, the key themes and all the different modules that have arisen. And so that's a big check-in. I think that's quite a positive thing. There's no question that this is an ongoing matter, because you've got to remember they are developing a product, and that product is being issued to us. We accept it once a month, and every time you issue a product or a new update, you can introduce new errors. So we're always doing testing every month before we accept it. And so it will go on with any of these types of cloud-based systems. So, Council, I guess the answer to it in short is that work in progress, but and there's more work for us to do, but I'm encouraged by the vendors' outreach to us as well.
Councillor Leggett.
Just a comment around risk, and I know we've got the strategic risk update, but it was pleasing to see that there's a strategic risk workshop planned between ELT and us as board members to further understand what's happened to the landscape in a broader sense, and whether we should reassess our strategic direction or a strategic risk. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Councillor Lawler.
Thank you. This is a very useful report. I'm just wondering about your overview at the end, where we talk about common themes around enhancing customer service requests and complaints processes, because I just think about the implementation of Te Ake Wai and what we expect in terms of a great deal of confusion and unhappiness and queries, etc. So I'm just wondering, is there a work stream to pick up on some of these findings?
Thank you, Jim.
Through the chair. So, yes, indeed. We've got to get our house in order before the 1st of July, and we, as you see from the report, there has been a backlog of inquiries because of the digital channels that we've got now. It is swamping the customer services group. So one of the things that we're actually looking at is we actually have, I don't want to push this too hard because everyone's got an opinion on it, but there's AI embedded in some of our technology which can actually interpret and even assess the sense of an email. And we're looking at some changes so that we can identify the more urgent matters quickly. So, say for example, someone's got a penalty issue, and these things can get escalated quite quickly. We ought to know about that earlier. So we do have a work stream. We're actively as a team actually supporting our customer services manager, whether it be from BTG or Audit or whatever, to look at this, because I think it is going to be a real issue if we're not in good shape by the 1st of July. We are bringing on new staff, which will be the costs of which will be recovered from Te Aki Wai in preparation for the changes that we're going to be making, because we will be responsible for customer services on behalf of Te Aki Wai for a period of time. So yeah, to me, this is actually a really important area. We're taking it very seriously.
Phyllis, can I comment on the table that you drew attention to on page 60 with the three various audits and the issues there? What would be helpful, I think, on a go forward is to know the age of some of those. 26 seems like quite a high number of issues outstanding, but some of those have just come from recent audit reviews. So just sort of the age of them, so that we can just make sure that they're not lost in the woodwork, and perhaps also what was the number at the previous meeting. So is that number increasing, decreasing? Would be helpful.
Through the chair, I think the other thing, and Phyllis and I have talked about this, is that while there's 26 findings, some of them are duplicates. So I'm not sure if Phyllis has got the answer to that today, but we'll certainly bring that back at the next risk and audit meeting.
Yeah, so cover that off as well as the age of them, and whether we're seeing an increasing list or a decreasing list. So. But excellent. It's lovely to see them all on one little table like that. So, all right. So it's been moved and seconded that we receive the report, internal audit update report. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. All right, Phyllis, you're still in the chair. Agenda item 6.5. Again, we've been asked to receive the report. So just prior to me moving that, I want to acknowledge that the officers have updated the attachment to this report, and that is on the table. So we will work with the attachment. So I'll move that we receive this amended report. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Duncan. Phyllis, sorry. Phyllis, again, step us through and just indicate what the changes are in this tabled report as opposed to what was in our papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just before I get to the amended paper, just some context for this report. This is our 6-monthly legislative attestation from management, and this report itself was for April to September 2025 last year. So to start off with, some of the information in there is a little bit old, but what was happening now is that we are in the middle of actually updating the next round. So follow-up is happening right now, as well as looking through some of the open findings itself. So within the next audit committee, you'll be getting the next report with the updates of where we are at, a more current update of where we are at. In terms of the the discussion paper itself, I did highlight that the process itself is changing in terms of the attestation process as a result of transition to a regional model. So that does impact the kind of legislation that we look at and attest to. So that's just noting in the report itself that is coming, and that does impact the kind of questions and the legislations that we ask. And that kind of leads me to the amendments in the paper. I had what's changed is in the first page of the report with the number of findings, the previous findings as well as the current open findings. So there's 2. And that too, the detail is on the third page itself, and that relates to water services, and so that is so that too was non-compliance with I think consent conditions. So that was missing in the original paper, is now put back in. So I've also a little bit premature in removing it and updated the wrong paper. So hence, so that's in. So we are very much still responsible for 3 waters at this stage, and that was included in the last attestation and reviewed by ALT and should be in the report. So that's the correction to this paper, noting that after 1 July that would be different. So that's this paper.
Thank you, Phyllis. Again, just before any discussion, this is another one of those improvement opportunities. It's a 6-monthly exercise. Again, can I blow some wind in the sails of the organisation, because 100% of the people that have been asked to complete this exercise have done that. And I can tell you that that's not normally the case from what I see around the sector. You are getting valuable input. There's a good list of issues that have been raised that are worth following through and seeing if any changes are needed. So, a really worthwhile exercise with the use of the Comply With tool. So. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Phyllis. Look, my one was to do with the closed compliance matters on page 69, I think it is, yeah. And it's the Land Transport Act one, where infringement fees were to be paid to government, but we have never done that. Can they backdate this? Are they able to come back to us? And what does it cover? Does it cover parking as well?
Do you want me to have a go at answering that through the chair?
Thank you, Nick.
So it is quite common practice across all councils that they don't make this payment, so we're not on our own in this scenario. And yes, Councillor Duncan, there is a risk that they could request it, but we judge that risk as being quite low.
Right, thank you for that question. Worthy to know that situation. All right, there be no further questions or debate. It's moved and seconded that we receive this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Right, thank you, Phyllis. Agenda item 6.6, the Treasury Investment and Liability Management. And again, we've been asked to receive this report. I'm happy to move in that regard. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Trelin. Thank you, Ian and Graham, for this report. A staple on our agenda. Has always been a bit difficult for some of us to follow. And we've got a change or a sort of wrinkle in it this time. So we look forward to your explanation of this Treasury report and sort of just where we're at as we go forward to the transfer of debt.
Thank you, Chair. So just with the report, I'll just highlight in terms of the paragraphs 5, 6 and 7 on page 71. So basically, we're all in compliant except for one matter, which is the 5-year interest rate risk, which if you go to page 79, and at the bottom there, it's shown that 13% it's in the red. It's on the bottom left, and it's meant to be a minimum of 20%, but it's actually 13%. So that's the item which does not comply. In terms of, but we had a council approval, which we took a paper in the 11th of December meeting to have this matter approved, that we're going to be breaching the policy, and that's with the continual transfer of the debt to Te Aki Wai. And the next paper, 6.7, which Ian will speak to, and myself as needed, is about that whole process around the debt transfer and other matters to do with Te Aki Wai. So other than that, that's what's a highlight. I'll just take any questions if there are any.
So, Graham, just as a point of clarification, the reason that we're in breach is that if we weren't, it would be disadvantageous to us. So if we went up over the 20% minimum on a sort of go-forward basis, that would be foolish to do that, if you like.
Correct, and that's the advice from PwC as well.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion, comment on this? So, Councillor Lawler.
Just a question, because I'm working hard to understand these beautiful graphs. Page 78, the funding risk identified is that there's not a risk, it's a tick, but we're compliant till April 2026, and then after that we just deal with the spread. Is that the is that what the comment is suggesting there?
Correct. We are currently compliant, and given our current profile, it will become uncompliant at that date. But between then and now, we'll do further actions. But again, some of this is related to the debt transfer, and with which we'll talk about in the next paper. So this is just a warning that we have to do something by that date. Otherwise, we won't comply.
Which is part of our BAU Treasury management.
All right, thank you, Graham and Ian, for that. It's a really important part of the management of council. Big sums involved, lots of risk around it, and the way that you manage this in conjunction with PwC gives us a lot of comfort. So thank you for that. The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. All right, gentlemen. Remain in the chair. Next agenda item 6.7, Three Waters debt transfer update paper. There are a number of recommendations set out on page 81. In the interest of time, I will not read all of those out. But the first one is to receive the report, and then there's a number sort of agreed and noted. So I'm happy to move in that regard, seconded by Councillor Waddle. Who am I going to hand to first? Ian? Thank you very much. Very clear paper, easy to read, but we will benefit from some guidance from you as we work our way through this.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And I'm reminded just right at the start of the meeting, you mentioned this was a fun meeting. And this paper is the crescendo of fun. I appreciate that. So look, this is really I've described it as an omnibus paper. There's a lot of different issues in here. It's kind of like everything you ever wanted to know about the upcoming debt transfer to Te Aki Wai kind of paper. So just to put this into context, this is one half of the biggest transaction that Council has ever or likely will ever undertake. So hence the importance of just spending some time on this half. The other half being assets. So there's going to be a big asset transfer. This is dealing with the big debt transfer. So one half of the coin, so to speak. So around about $280 to $300 million worth of debt is going to transfer. I haven't got a specific number yet, that it will be in that range. Why I'm hesitant to name a specific it will be X million is because there are still some fairly foundational, fundamental, significant balls still in the air, and I will just make reference to Wellington Water. So their spend rate needs to increase over the next 5 months to get to the forecast that they have, but whether they can or cannot achieve that will impact on the debt number, potentially by 10, 20 million. So that's why I'm giving you that range. The second point that I want to make is that a few months ago I came to council with the idea that we would be transferring debt over time, and that it could be 3, 4, 5 years, and that we would have to do, or likely to do, back-to-back transfers. In recent times, conversations between our central project team and LGFA have determined that actually novation, which we had thought was off the table, is actually on the table. And so what novation does is it basically means debt can transfer instantly, which is fantastic. And I thought maybe just a practical example of that, putting my teacher hat on, if we did a back-to-back arrangement, let's just suppose this was the debt instrument, and a back-to-back would mean that you would create a second instrument which would have the same terms and conditions, but just in reverse. So the plus would be offset by the minus, which would be a zero, but these would be in existence for potentially years until they drop off, and then we effectively have them removed from our books. But a novation is basically, here's the name Porirua City Council on this debt instrument. We get a bottle of twink, we twink it out, and we put Te Aki Y in its place. Simplistically speaking, please don't tell PwC I said that, but that's the effect. That's the effect of novation. So we can do that fairly, as close to day one as we possibly can get, which has the effect of debt gone. So 280, 300 million gone in an instant, which really is the power of novation. So most councils, as you can imagine, the officers that I'm dealing with anyway, are recommending to their councils and their authorisers that is the best method for them. So we're all go on that. And PwC are also very much part of that recommendation process. So that's kind of the first major point that I just kind of want to make through this paper. Second one is, as Graham mentioned, we have this issue at the moment where we are in breach of the Treasury policy, and in one sense we're under-hedged if you consider all the debt, but we're actually over-hedged if you consider just the residual debt that we'll be left with. So that's why we're hesitant to try and put more hedging in, because it'll just make the position worse after debt transfers. So that's the reason for the seeking the exemption. It makes sense. PwC are right behind us on that one as well. But it does bring to mind the fact that our Treasury policy will require some adaptation as well. So this is such a fundamental change to our, debt structure for the council. We actually need to relook at our Treasury policy. So we're going to have a look at that as part of our long-term plan. We'll be doing a refresh of a number of policies. Treasury policy will be one of those. We will try and get it to you in the next ARC meeting in September. In September, if we can do that, that would be great. The next point is the wording around guarantee, which is possibly something also requiring a little bit of explanation. So in earlier versions of the partnership agreement, it's referred to as several. And LGFA have really pushed to change that or update that to joint and several. What that means is that essentially if one of our fellow councils default in some way on their guarantee, so this only applies in situations where a guarantee is called upon, but if a guarantee is called upon and a council fails to honour their or cannot honour their part of the commitment, then the other councils have to effectively pick up the tab that council is leaving behind. It's being done on the term used as a demand cascade. So if one council does fall, then the others are proportionately liable. So it's not like one has to step up in isolation. It's the others that would have to make up the shortfall in respect of their proportion, which is an important distinction to make when talking about joint and several. It's largely reflective of guarantees that we have in place with our GFA anyway. So it's a little bit of a surprise that it wasn't joint and several right from the start, but it is an update to documentation that you've seen and considered previously. And the last point is quite an interesting one, and it's the current working assumption, so I can't say that this is locked down yet, but it relates to the interest rate swaps. And so we talked about the hedging, and we've talked about the fact that we're over-hedged when you think of the residual debt, but under-hedged when you think of the total debt. Those swaps have a value, and we will be transferring the as part of the transfer process, some of those swaps will be obviously associated with the debt. An assessment will be made, current thinking, assessment will be made at the date of transfer about whether those interest rate swaps are in the money or out of the money. Some are good, some are bad. That's just the nature of swaps. And what will happen is that you can't novate, very difficult to transfer, so they will be a cash settlement will be made based on the position at that point in time of those interest rate swaps. I think we currently think we're in the money, but obviously the market can move, change, and so I cannot make that guarantee that that's where we will end up. But that is an interesting solution to that potentially complicated idea. Cash payout is actually probably the simplest and best solution when you think about it, but that's I guess the last of the omnibus points to be made on this paper. So I know we've traversed a whole lot of different issues and I've wrapped it all into one paper, but I thought because of the significance, it would be really good to present that to you guys as the Audit and Risk Committee in advance of going to a full council meeting.
Excellent, Ian. Thank you. Councillor Tirolin.
Thanks very much. This has been very helpful. Thank you. My question is around the practical implications of this in the short term over the next couple of months before we have this transfer. So I'm thinking in a hypothetical situation where we have a water infrastructure related emergency in the next 4 months that requires us to stump up a bit of cash to deal with. So a pipe explodes somewhere, we've got to find $4 million to deal with that. What does that look like financially for council? Do we borrow that money and that's automatically wrapped into the transfer to Te Aki Wai? Is that something that we need to manage and only part would go across? How would that play out?
Interesting question, and I know you mentioned a figure of 4 million. Actually, 4 million would be well within our kind of tolerance. If I mentioned before Wellington Water, that's kind of 10 to 20 million. The long run through to the end of the financial year, so 4 million. If it was 40 million, then I'd start getting really nervous. But essentially, responsibility passes on 1 July. So anything up to then, we're responsible. So if something breaks and we have to debt fund the fix of that thing, with the significance of which could be, we all know water, it's expensive, right? So if we had to debt fund a solution to fix it, then that would be something that would be just added to that number.
So if we're thinking about the way that this transfer lines up with our own annual plan this year, for example, if something like that did happen, that's not necessarily going to have a substantial or any rating impact or have a cost impact down the line through Te Aki Wai.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. No rating impact in the 26-27 annual plan if that were to occur, but obviously the community would have to, the cost would eventually be on the community through the water charging process.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No, that makes sense. Thank you. That's my only question for now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. A couple of quick, obvious ones. The 6.16, where Wellington Council is going to put 33.5% of their debt over. I assume that's at the 1st of July or end of the month.
Yeah. Through your chair.
Especially with what's happening in town. Obviously, they need to spend more.
Correct. So their methodology is different from ours. I think we've covered this in a different meeting, and they couldn't replicate the same methodology that all the other councils could. So a general agreement across the region was that the estimate of their debt that they would transfer would be based on the proportional size of their assets. So they've calculated 33% as the asset book. 33% of it is water, therefore let's take 33% of their debt. Now, the actual numbers, the process is described in the transfer agreement or the partnership agreement. The actual numbers that will be transferred will be calculated at May, and that is considered to be the first cut. And then any kind of wash up in the calculation will be processed once audited financial statements have been issued, which is usually September, October. So it will be interesting, the how this Moa Point scenario develops. I don't have all of the answers, and I don't know if anyone does have all of the answers, but that 33.5% is what is understood now, and it could change. But as could all of our numbers I mentioned before, that our numbers could change by 10, 20 million.
No, absolutely. Yep. I don't have an issue with that, just wanted you to confirm that. And if the Takiwai directors come to us and say we need more money before the end of July to do what we're doing in the short term, does that debt then go over as well?
That is an entirely different question, I think. So what the directors of Te Aki Wai have worked out is that what we have known for some time is that there are many things to be done and not enough money on the face of it, despite the fact that they have greater debt headroom and etc. So they are feeling the pain right now, and they are interested in a number of strategies to consider whether council might be helpful in that regard. They've had pretty clear messages from all the chief executives that that is not possible. I think all of you as councillors understand that on July the 1st, or the first bills that people get post-water reform, there has to be a compensatory reduction in rates to demonstrate that we're not double dipping, that we're not charging for water, even though we are now, have talked for a long time now about arm's length in water services. So I think this will work through. It would be my expectation that the directors will come in front of you shortly, in fact, and start talking about the difficulties they see ahead of them. They're not new. We have reduced our capital program many times since I've been here to adjust for our ability to afford things. So they're facing the same issues, and they're facing it with fresh eyes, and good on them. They're looking around to see what possibilities that they have. But in the first instance, there is no possibility, in my view, of well, you can tell me if there's a political appetite to do that, but I would have thought not, and not across the region. Things like Moa Point are they're a moment that we all take seriously, and we makes us all think the vulnerability of many of both our network and our plants, particularly in the wastewater area. We've always prioritised drinking water, but at the changeover, in my view, there's no possibility of any further input from council. We're shareholders in this, so no doubt they will be visiting us on a regular basis to talk about their circumstances. There's some other options available, I think.
Thank you. Our purse is shut, is my view.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Leggett.
Yes, I'm with the Mayor. I was going to ask a similar question. But at a bit of a lower level, just out of interest, what happens, because it happens every year, we have OPEX and CAPEX planned in our budgets, and carryovers. What happens to carryovers in this instance?
Very good point. I have on a number... We meet with Wellington Water on a monthly basis, review forecast, financial progress, etc. And many of the capital programs have been running slow according to their own budgets. So this very question has been addressed very clearly with them on multiple occasions. There are no carryovers of Porirua City funds into the next financial year because responsibility for the Three Waters networks transfers across. So they're aware of that and hopefully making plans accordingly.
So doesn't this compound the issues that Te Aki Wai will have in terms of going forward if there are no carryovers? Because we've already budgeted for those carryovers, have we not?
If you think about it, by not spending that money, we're not drawing down the debt. So actually, when we pass over the work in progress to them, Te Aki Wai draw down the debt and continue with the work in progress project.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll continue by drawing down their own debt. Yep.
Correct, yeah. The largest work in progress item is obviously the wastewater storage tank. That should be completed before year end. I say that because of its significance, and that will greatly reduce the work in progress that we carry in the water world.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, mine's probably quite a simple one, but I just couldn't get my head around it. On page 87, item 56, out of money by 4 million, double what it was last year. Can you explain that to me?
So the interest rates bounce around a lot. So at the moment, council is out of the money. Yeah. So, and help me if I'm looking at you, Graham, because you're the expert in this space. But every year, I don't know if you remember the annual report, there's a very large mark-to-market kind of adjustment made every year. I think one year we were up 10 million, the next year we were down 8 million. It bounces around depending on what's happening in the interest rate market, which is completely outside of our control. This really talks about the movement in the year. But I think overall we're still up, if I recall correctly. So although I'm saying out of the money by about 4 million this year, we're actually still up. So when it settles, or when we when we have this conversation with Te Ake Wai about, okay, you take these, then I think we're still in the money. But like I say, interest rates bobble all around the place. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, that could have been clearer.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Lawler.
Thank you. I have a question about the report itself, but I also have perhaps a process question about this feedback we've had to the meeting, just how we deal with that, but I will leave that in your hands. My question about the report, page 84.24, the operational mechanics at transfer, cut-over processes. I just don't understand that term. Could you explain cut-over processes, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, look, I have talked about novation with Twink. The reality is it's a little bit more complicated than that, but not terribly more complicated, but there will be cut-over issues. So you have a legal document that exists up to 30 June, and, is that 10 o'clock or is that, 5 o'clock or what have you. So the actual mechanics of transferring, because New Zealand markets, they're open at 9 o'clock in the morning, whereas, New York is, so we're looking to PwC for all of that kind of level of detail. What does cutover mean? Is it midnight? Who's going to be sitting at their desk at midnight? Treasury is a world of complication in itself that I will blissfully pass over responsibility to PwC to manage on our behalf. I think that's what that's really going to.
Can I ask the Chief Executive just to comment on the process issue of the query that came in overnight?
We do get queries overnight particularly when we're putting up council papers. Those are mainly answerable, I think. I have only glanced through them, but they'll go through our normal process. I note it's addressed to elected members, but I'll pass it through to these guys who will draft a response, and we'll prepare a response to go with some of the facts in there, because there's quite a lot of factual sort of basis for the request. So we will reply to that.
Thank you, Wendy. Ian, I just had one or two questions and sort of observations in the paper. The first perhaps was a point of clarification around dealing with the hedges, the interest rate swaps. So my understanding is that they will be passed over to Te Ake Wai, and together with the cash, they will be sort of marked to market on that day, and any cash paid or received based on where they are in relation to the market. Do I understand that correctly, or do you close them out?
Not quite. Oh, Graham's ready to go.
Yeah, we've had some good bit of discussion with PwC on this. Basically what will happen is on the day or the day after, they'll be marked to market and they'll be settled. Then it's up to council to close them out. If it wants to close them out, and the basis of closing them out. And so what we've talked about is different ways of potentially closing out, and what swaps we close out. That's council's decision.
Okay.
So we could go to the bank which we've got the swap with and ask them to close it out, but then you're only going to one party. The other way she can close it out is you actually do a reverse swap. Right. And you can go to all the banks and you can ask them what is the price to do the equivalent of a reverse swap. So you're not just going to one party.
Okay.
All that's yet to be determined.
Yeah. Understand that. That's helpful, Graham. So then on day one, Te Ake Wai will take out their own swaps.
Correct.
They will set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have options, is what Graham's really essentially saying, and we'll work with PwC to make sure that the Porirua take the best option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The other point that comes to my mind is in relation to an answer given to the Mayor's question in terms of the Te Ako Wai directors. Are they across all this? Because presumably they need to approve the receipt of the debt. So, I suppose what I'm asking, could they be a problem child in this, and sort of as you work towards that transfer, they having a different view than the partner councils?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually there's a third party, obviously. It's like a triangle, so all three parties need to agree to this, the other being LGFA. So as the lender, they have to agree that entity is novating their debt to that entity. So it's actually kind of like a three-way approval process. We, as far as I'm aware, the central establishment team, and this is a well-resourced central establishment team, are constantly firing up papers to their board for review, and I'm pretty sure debt has been discussed at that board level. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So everyone, all three elements are on the same page. Now this, by the way, that you're not approving this today, and many other councils are going through the same process where they're familiarising themselves with this concept of novation. So nobody's actually approved anything yet, but I think all of the parties are making the right signals to this point.
Thank you, Ian. That's helpful. My final one was you mentioned that this paper rightfully is dealing with debt. You're going to do a similar exercise on assets, and in my mind, it sort of requires you then to have a look at what will the new situation be. 1 July, what will the debt be left, and that'll feed into the long-term planning exercise. So some consideration as to what will business as usual be post water transfer.
Yeah. Those 2 points. First, I'll start with the second one. What you described there is largely the annual plan for 26-27. So that will be the view of council without Three Waters, well, it's going to look very different, as we've mentioned in other forums. The first one, your first question, which escapes me now. Asset, yes, sorry. Asset. I'm like a goldfish. Yes, absolutely, yes. And to a certain extent, when we started down this pathway a few months ago, or even a year ago, there were really big questions around debt and how it would work and how it would transition and what would transition. It's actually come together really well, and I think all of the councils are generally aligned all of the officials, I should continue to say, the officials are aligned in how this is taking shape, and it makes sense. Assets is actually a bigger piece of work, and because whilst we are all well familiar with the pipes under the ground, and that they're pretty kind of easy to conceptualise. What's less easy is some of the things around the periphery of, so land and buildings and, that reservoir on that land, should that transfer its reserve land? There's a lot of issues to kind of work through. It's kind of like 99% of the asset equation is understood, so that's the pipes under the ground. It's that last 1% which is causing, some really robust conversations, shall we say. So, yes, there will be a paper on that. And it might even be more dense, which I'm sure you're all looking forward to. Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Mayor.
Sorry to be a pain. Can I ask one more question?
Never a pain.
It's similar to Councillor Trillin in the beginning, because we have our lovely big tank over there, which I understand now needs more money from Wellington Water. So when that comes to us soon, I understand, that debt then goes over there again? Because it's the gift that keeps giving, and the procurement is, something has to stop, and the ratepayers are at the end of this begging bowl of more money. If we need to paint it, I'm happy to go and paint it. But it's like, seriously, Wellington Water, you can't keep doing this to us. So this new company, will they have, Te Aki Wai won't be able to do these sort of things? Because it's the ratepayer at the end, and we know the bills are going to get larger. So it goes over.
So the liability is theirs, but we are shareholders. So if they get into a lot of trouble, they will come calling. They will knock on the door for sure. But let's be optimistic about this. This is a shiny thing that we're looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to it.
But that kind of thing for individual projects, that's because we own the asset and we decide the investment path for, so once you've got it 99% built, you are trapped into the whatever costs fall late in a project. They're not real decisions, are they? Because you have...
Price is not a price, in other words.
Yeah, I understand the pain. I feel the pain. But yes, that scenario will not occur under the new regime.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Waddle.
Yes, thank you. This has been very robustly discussed, and there's a lot of detail in there, and I look forward to the asset side of it. It's going to be even bigger. I just guess the next question, we've got one more Audit and Risk Committee meeting before 1st of July, is that correct? Any future changes in discussion will come to full council, or will that go through TPK?
Everything will go through full council. This is a giant transaction. It has to go through full council.
No, fantastic.
Jim.
Through the Chair, I think just for the Audit and Risk Committee awareness, we're meeting with Standard & Poor's on the 19th of March. And of course, one of the things that they're particularly interested in is the nature of the guarantee. So we'll just have to wait and see what their perspective on that is. Of course, they're looking at our 26-27 annual plan forecasts and our approach, which we've somewhat discussed with Council, which will play into that.
Thank you, Jim. And just considering the response to Councillor Waddle's question, if it was considered there was a need for a sort of out-of-session Audit and Risk Committee, because, this is a big transaction, as Ian said in his introduction, probably the biggest the council's ever seen. So, if there was a need to call another meeting, I'm sure that the members of the committee would be not adverse to that. So
could I make one last comment, and I probably should have used it in my intro. For those of you who went through any form of accounting at school, you probably remember A equals L plus P. So, no? Okay. Assets equals liabilities plus proprietorship. And why I say that is because this debt is obviously the L, the liability, and the asset was obviously the A in that calculation. And these two offset to determine the value of the shareholding that we will have in Te Aki Wai. So that I should have probably mentioned that right at the start. That's part of the significance of this whole thing. This sets values of shareholding.
Thank you, Ian. A very good paper, excellent discussion. Will not be the last that we hear of all of this. Can I congratulate the work that's been done early on, because this obviously is very complicated, requires this level of sort of thought here in February, even though the transaction's not going to happen until 1st of July. So thank you for that. It's been moved and seconded that we receive the report and the other 5 items in this motion on page 81, yep, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Excellent. Thank you for that. Agenda item 6.8. Thank you, Ian, Graham, Jim and Wendy for your input into that discussion. We welcome back to the table Phyllis. We've been required to receive this report, so I will move in that direction. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Thank you, Phyllis. Excellent paper, updated with some recent environmental changes and comments. So again, take it as read, but do highlight any matters in here for us.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of this paper, just a few points to highlight. So to start off with, there is no movement to the risk profile in itself. So overall, we're still, if you look at it, pretty high out there. It's all pretty red. And we acknowledge that over the last few months, since the last time this committee had looked at this paper, management has, of course, been reviewing this quite regularly, every quarter, if not more often. And the conversations has been, unsurprisingly, about the transition to Kiakiwai, the project risk itself in terms of its impact to both council as well as our strategic risk. There's been a lot of conversation around cybersecurity as well, and that especially with what happened in the last week as well as with in that space. So this paper kind of brings together all of that that context, both globally. It summarizes what's happening in the global landscape as well as domestically, and some of the key themes. You will see that it highlights cybersecurity continues to be a threat, and we are living that right now in this day and age. And that should be enough for my introduction. Thank you, Warren.
Jim, you going to cover off cybersecurity?
Yes, I think that it's timely just to share with the Audit Risk Committee what we're doing in the context of recent breaches that we've heard in the health sector. So just to remind everyone, I think it was on the 30th of December last year, there was a breach of Manage My Health where there was about 120,000 users impacted. It was a ransomware. Don't know whether it was paid or not. It's all confidential. For about $60,000 US. That's not the first. That's the biggest breach we've had since 2019. I don't know if people remember the 2019 Waikato District Board breach. Pretty much took that. Took everything out basically. So we have been working, so that's the first one, and then in the last week there's been one with a company called, let me get this right, Medimap. So what Medimap do is they provide to quite possibly up to 60% of the retirement villages, aged health care facilities around New Zealand, basically the ability to provide nurses exactly what they need to administer in terms of medications. And what's happened there is that the data in there has been corrupted, medications have been changed, some people have been identified as deceased or their name has been changed. This is significant. They've actually taken a full outage and it's all paper-based now. So these are two private companies, which is interesting in itself. There's a question mark around oversight of their security standards. But what I can say is that we've been working with our security agent, which provides us with a 24/7 facility so that they can identify, like they identified in real time, for example, this last breach for some of their customers. They also work with us to identify things that we need to do. Now, there's a couple of lessons that came out of this. I'm not going to go into the details of what we're doing. This is going to be a it's a very sensitive matter, and we'll talk about that in private. But what's interesting is in the first one, it wasn't just that there was a breach, but there was very poor communication. So a lot of the patients that were affected and their records that were affected or taken were not communicated to until the 5th of January, and in some cases not at all. So that's a lesson for how we manage when you do get a breach. So we are looking at different ways to make sure we're robust in that process. I think you have to assume, and we also know that there were certain weaknesses in the way they managed their password controls. So I'm not going to stand here and say that it can't happen to us, because it can. But we will be working with our security partners and give you an update. Probably we'll give you a full update with the CIO at the next Audit Risk Committee meeting. But I just wanted to assure you that we're across this.
Thank you, Jim. That's very helpful, a very sort of topical issue and on the minds of many. So thank you for that. Any further questions, debate on this? Councillor Waddle.
Yes, thank you. Just looking at sort of point 16 of the Strategic Risk Report, page 8, or 103 on diligent. We talk about not harnessing the benefits of AI. I just want to understand what, because you talked about AI earlier today, I just want to understand what we're doing around AI as a council.
Through the chair. So we have several things. Just completed a briefing session, awareness session around AI literacy and competence with a third party for the executive leadership team. We want to do the same thing with council. It's quite insightful. It's non-technical, but it will give you a lot more insight as to what this thing does and what it doesn't do, and the things that you need to be aware of. The second thing that we are doing is we've got a policy. We've introduced, we have been running a pilot for some time now on a internal chatbot, which is basically modelled on ChatGPT, which means that if you put information into it which is sensitive to council, it won't be out in the free world. We will be looking at something potentially for councillors as well, but we want to give you some real guidance about the use and approach to AI and what it is, what it can do, and what it really shouldn't be doing. So that's coming up. I think we're scheduling it. We're working on the schedule with Jack at the moment.
Just a supplementary to that, are we working alongside our neighbouring councils, or do we know what other councils in the region are doing with AI?
Yes, we do. So we did a fairly so I had the technical or acting CIO, who's our most technical party in council, go around and talk to the other councils exactly what they were doing. Many of them have got policies. Some of them are using open ChatGPT for their staff with some rules around it. Pretty difficult to control. We've taken a different approach. I think our approach is one that a lot of companies are doing, that operating in very commercially sensitive environments. So yes, we have been talking to them and we are learning from each other.
Thank you, Councillor Waddle. Very topical query, so good to have that on the table. Councillor Lawler.
I'm pleased to see, as Councillor Leggett said, that this is coming to a workshop. I'm wondering if this has been reviewed in the light of the recent flooding events, because I guess, it feels to me one of the challenges with risk frameworks of this nature is the risks often compound. A major climate event will result in infrastructure failure, is likely to have unintended environmental impacts. None of these risks are kind of a single lane. So I'm just, and also they refer obviously to risks to council, risks to assets, risks to our financial status, which are obviously important. But the last event there was loss of life, and that has quite a long-term impact in communities. So I'm just wondering how we take that into account.
Through the chair, flooding is part of, I guess, natural disaster and climate related, which is in one of our top risks in terms of the impacts of climate change and responding to it. So not just flooding, but landslips as well. In terms of this question, have we reviewed it recently? Was that the question? Just clarifying the question itself. Yes, ELT does review all of this every quarter. If you're talking about the storm event the last 2 weeks ago, I think that is kind of reinforcing some of the, I guess, the consequences of what we're seeing. Is a kind of the symptom. So yeah, I'm not too sure that changes our response, our strategic response as such, in terms of understanding that there is a significant risk around how we look at mitigation and adaptation to climate change risks. But yeah, that's, I think if
through the chair.
Nick or...
This question's actually been raised before, somewhat through Felicity, in regard to the interrelationship between some of these risks. So, Councillor, you're right on the money in that respect. I think this is something that, when we get into the workshop, needs to be explored a little bit. I think one of the things that we want to try and get to the heart of is what's your risk appetite, because your level of risk appetite tends to drive how much you are prepared to invest or avoid or mitigate some of these actions occurring, and of course that has consequences financially, and then back to the ratepayers, and then how's that managed? So, hence the reason we think it's timely to do a fairly thorough strategic workshop.
Thank you, Councillor Lawler. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, this is probably a bit more specific with the energy supply shortage. We've got a critical asset in our sewage treatment plant over in Kotahi Bay, and we have regular outages there. We were going to have a Wellington Electricity speak to us about this, I think.
There is a generator. Whether it always kicks in is a question, but yes, that and Wellington Water will cover this off. They are coming. I can't remember, Mike.
19th and the 26th for a workshop, and then for TPK.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Leggett.
Can you just talk to us a little bit more about this interim billing system, Te Aki Wai? I suspect there are going to have to be some significant comms and what-ifs around if we fail to explain. Well, I'd like to understand what was going to go on bills. Do we get to see any of that beforehand, or?
I'll have a crack at this. Councillor, I think the first thing I would say is that no matter what we do, I think we're going to have a lot of inquiries.
Sure.
No, when I joined council, I didn't even know that I was paying for water, because I used to live in Auckland and they used to rate me. So, there's some really the awareness of getting two bills and what it's for is going to be one matter. Yes, there's going to be a communication strategy around it. We are involved in that. Hannah's deeply across that with Te Aki Wai and so forth. And I believe that will come to council, because that's going to be the biggest deal in town. I think in regard to the billing, there's two there's two components around that, which is we've got to be able to undertake the billing on behalf of Te Aki Wai for a period of time until they can get their systems up and running, and that could be quite some time. I'm not going to even guess how long that will be. And there is a necessity. We've got a project team running at the moment, putting a lot of focus on this to make sure that our way of doing it is going to meet the requirements that the central establishment team agree with us. We are looking at a contingency plan. I always think that what is the worst thing that could happen? Well, we can't produce a bill for some reason because our systems, as I said before, they get updated every month. What would happen if it got corrupted? So we're actually working on a manual system with other third parties. We're investigating. If all things fail, we can still bill. But this is identified as one of the key or highest risks in the transition. Yeah. But I think communications generally, no matter how well we get the billing accuracy right, the understanding and acceptance of two bills and the fact that we're going to have people setting up, you'll have two direct debits or APs or whatever, is going to be immensely confusing for a lot of people in our community.
Just the other point I would make is that I teach my grandmother to suck eggs here is the key question that people will be wanting answered or the information they want is around does the Te Aki Wai bill that I'll get, is that reflected in the decrease in my rates bill? And that's going to be a fundamental issue if we obfuscate around that area, or if it's so complicated that we can't explain it. Or
remember, we've also got revaluations coming, which is not going to make the maths that easy for people to understand.
No, it's not.
And it's a very complicated. Every time revaluations occur, we struggle to explain that to people, but so it is a communication challenge.
Yeah, which we are anticipating, and we'll have to deal with it. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
Good discussion. Lot of work in this area. Challenging next sort of 6 or 12 months, and the importance of the strategic risk workshop can't be underestimated. All right, if there's no further discussion or debate, it's been moved and seconded that we receive this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. There's no general business, so if we can close the meeting by saying together the closing karakia, which is now on the screen. Kia ora, thank you everybody for your input. A really good meeting, and I now declare it closed and wish you